Make It Right, the manufacturing podcast.
Manufacturing is defined as the making of goods by hand or by machine that upon completion, the business sells to a customer. As we have discussed many times on this podcast, the manufacturing process can be very challenging, and the need to make more for less and better is constantly upon a company. Making it right is the first challenge, but selling the products can be equally challenging. Welcome to the Make It Right podcast. I'm Janet Eastman, and this week on the show, my guest is Ryan Bretsch. He's the VP Sales Sales Enablement. That's more than one syllable there. He is the VP of Sales Enablement at Spoke Marketing in St. Louis, and he's here to talk about how sales enablement, if done right, can help you get on a fast path to cash. So welcome to the show, Ryan. And I'm giggling because you and I were just talking about how your last name is kind of different because it's 7 letters, but only one syllable, which is kind of rare. And then I couldn't even say enablement. So there, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Janet. One of the first challenges with sales enablement, I guess, is going to get pronounced, correctly on both ends, right?
I failed miserably right at the word go. Hey, I'm out the gate wrong.
You did fine.
So it's really a pleasure to talk to you, Ryan. And I'd like to find out a little bit more about sales enablement. But let's first talk about your career and your sales background and how you got on this path.
All right. Well, I actually first started my career, believe it or not, in operations. I was, worked for Unisource, which is a distribution company. It was bought by Georgia Pacific, and I was an operations analyst was how I started my career. And then somehow, in a move to Portland, Maine, I migrated over to the sales. And so I've actually been playing tic-tac-toe with the United States, I think, because, from there I went to Portland, Maine, then I went to Tampa, Florida, then I went to Seattle, Washington. In Florida, I managed a 50-person sales group for Bright House Networks, which is actually now part of Charter Communications. Was an executive director for Sales Result, which is a sales operations company in Seattle. And that's really where I started to get, interested, deeply interested in that topic. From there, I went to St. Louis and, actually founded my own company and sold that earlier this year and, vice president of sales enablement for Spoke Marketing now.
Okay, so your role at Spoke is VP Sales Enablement. So explain what that role actually entails. Like, what, for those of us who are uninitiated, what is sales enablement?
Yeah, it's a great question. So sales enablement is actually about providing salespeople with everything that they need to succeed in the field. So that includes training, sales collateral, tools, resources, just anything that makes it easier for sales professionals to conduct the important parts of their job, conducting discovery with clients or prospective clients, delivering sales presentations, planning and conducting sales meetings, so on and so forth. And it is actually a subset of the larger sales operations discipline.
Okay, so when did you actually see the sales enablement light? When did you kind of go, well, there's sales, but then there's all this other stuff, and you got into the sales enablement side of things?
Well, sales operations really deals with the administration end of supporting the sales effort. So that has anything like CRM, managing and the CRM, training sales representatives on CRM, developing compensation plans. So that's the administrative side of the sales operations discipline. I've always been fascinated because, I just love being around, especially top sales performers, right? I mean, they really inspire me. And, I've always just had a passion for just really from even an academic standpoint, what are the things that can be done to make the, sales professional's job, easier when they're out there, because it's already a pretty hard job, as you know, and as a lot of sales representatives for manufacturers know as well.
So I think, sales has changed probably, and you can correct me on this because I've never been in sales, but probably over the last 20 years, sales has really changed, or 25 years, right?
Well, it's changed and is going to continue to change. I think probably one of the biggest changes right now is really how you map sales to how customers actually buy. So if you think about it, for like when you used to go to buy a car, you basically plan for the big day where you're going to go down to the dealerships, look at, numerous cars, whether it's one, five, or 10, cars, but you're really planning on making a day of it, kind of like a less fun version of, of an outdoor picnic, right? But there's all the pieces to that negotiation, looking at the cars, engaging with the salesperson, engaging with the sales manager. So it was really one of those things, that if you wanted information about buying a car, to make a purchasing decision about a car, you're out there and again having to make a day of it, and that was the process for buying a car. If you think about how you buy a car today, is you're doing most of the research on the car specs and everything else online. I mean, you can even do, I believe, virtual test drives, virtual walkarounds of the car. So the whole fundamental nature of buying a car has changed. And so the sales have to, the sales strategy and the sales engagement has to map to it. If it doesn't, then you're out of business.
Yeah, I remember buying my last car. I actually went online and I actually built the thing on my computer and went, okay, I like that hard top and I like that color and I like this and I like that. And I knew exactly when I walked into the dealership what I was buying. And they probably had me by the nose because they went, well, that's what you're buying. That's the price, right? But yeah, it has changed quite a bit over the last little while. So let's talk a little bit and have you share a story or an experience to illustrate sales operations in practice now, how it's all happening.
All right. Well, I'll share a story on sales operations, just where this can impact. I actually will make it a sales operations story and not an enablement story, because I think it really just kind of illustrates the thought process of how sales has to relate to basically mapping to the whole of the business. So in this case, there was a company in New Hampshire that did wood flooring. And it was a really cool process when I went out there. They actually, old growth forests, submerged logs that they would actually pull from rivers, basically do their treatment of the wood, and it just led to an absolutely phenomenal, product that popped in people's homes. But as you can probably imagine, that process is expensive, right? It's not just a matter of going out, chopping down a few, trees and then making wood flooring out of it. So, when we interviewed the CEO of the company, one of the questions that's asked is that, what's the most important thing for your business when it comes to your sales effort? And the CEO reply was, the ability to protect and preserve margins, which is really important for manufacturers, and certainly important for manufacturers of high quality products that are labor intensive. Once you started looking at the actual internal sales process itself, and I'm always spending time with the sales representatives, one of the questions I asked at the frontline level is, how much degree of control do the sales representatives have over pricing? And the answer that I was given was a wide latitude of control. So if you really think about piecing together what management strategy was versus the strategy on the sales in the sales field, as the sales professionals are dealing with the customers, and actually wound up being disjointed and not in symmetry, because what the salespeople were basically doing was just asking, so what is it that you're paying, what is it you're getting quoted for the pine floor that you're thinking about putting in your home, and they'd get the amount. And then, the sales representative essentially would be, if we can match that amount, would you buy our product instead? And more often than not, the answer is absolutely yes, because you're getting a phenomenal upgrade for the same price as you would pay for a normal wood floor. The problem is that, while the sales were going terrific, it was generating a lot of revenue, it wasn't meeting, management goals of profitability. So, really examining the sales process, on a very close academic detail level is really important for, getting the sales operations in sync with the business operations.
So in that story, the salesman wasn't selling the uniqueness of the product. They were just finding whatever that number was that was going to make the sale.
Exactly. So multiply that by, 8 sales representatives all doing the same thing, because, what management was incentivizing and compensating on, and basically, motivating, because every salesperson wants to be the top salesperson, right? So as if you're trying to sell value, but you see the person next to you is winning more sales on price, you're going to start doing the same exact thing to keep up. And it's just it's a cascade effect, and it really affects the company's bottom line.
So how do you turn that ship around?
Well, a lot of it is, there's a number of things that you're looking to do. Sales enablement, obviously, being one on an operations end. What you're compensating on is probably the key to addressing that situation. So in that case, we essentially redesigned the compensation plan, because salespeople are going to sell to what makes them the most money, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's fundamental to to being a sales professional. So in that case, you're really working to address it through the compensation plan.
Okay. So just explain to me then why sales enablement is so important. Is it really like a missing link between sales and marketing? Because marketing is presumably, if we use this wood floor example, the marketing products would have said, this is a fantastic floor. It's old growth forest. They're beautiful floors. They're so unique. They're going to look like nothing you've ever seen in anybody else's home, right? But then the sales guys over there just selling on price. So how do you connect the marketing and the sales to bring that together so that the salesperson can actually sell that uniqueness?
Well, it's actually a great two-part question, and I'm going to endeavor to answer the first, part first. And I'm going to throw a little bit of curveball out. Is, you had asked, why is sales and enablement so important? And I'm going to first offer to you that it's not important.
Okay.
It's not important to A players. So your top performing salespeople, they always, enjoy the benefits of, of what sales enablement, brings to the equation. But, they don't need sales, enablement to be able to sell effectively in the field. That's why they're A performers, right? They can do, magic with very minimal resources. So, sales enablement is actually much more important. And just know, that A players are actually rare. I mean, there's theories that, you can make them commonplace. You really can't. I mean, how many Michael Jordans are there in basketball, right? And even if you had 5 Michael Jordans all playing together, how effective would they be playing together? Sales enablement is really designed for the B and C players that need the extra push to get up to the level of performance of A players. And if we go back to, the second part of the question is I don't think that sales enablement is also the missing link between sales and marketing. But both sales and marketing need to be involved in it. They need to know what their roles are, and they need to know how to properly support it so sales enablement, can be effective. When they don't do those things, that's often why sales enablement is not effective. But
Sorry, go ahead.
but overall, sales enablement is important because it's the key to get the B and C players to run, better, more productive sales meetings.
Okay, so then how can marketing really contribute effectively to that modern sales process?
So there has to really be, it really maps to understanding how the customer buys. The evolution of marketing is no longer just about brand awareness, promotion, advertising, and or lead generation. The nature of how the customer makes purchasing decisions is fundamentally changed, fundamentally. And so more so than ever, it's, marketing has to be involved in supporting the entire sales process. But you have this historical rub, that takes place between marketing and sales and who should be in control of that. And it's really important to make sure that that both sides, marketing and sales, are really listening to the sales professional's perspective and really digging deep around understanding what it is that they need.
Right. And ultimately, I guess, well, I suppose it all depends on what you manufacture and what your product is that you're trying to sell, but the salesperson should be out there trying to sell a solution to someone's problem, right?
Yes, that's exactly what they should be doing. I mean, in many cases, manufacturing is speccing products to meet a certain solution for a prospective client. And as important as relationship building still is to the sales process, it's really the efficient conduct of the sales meetings that's more important than ever. And sales also has to understand that marketing now has an important role to play in that. They don't necessarily, a lot of sales organizations don't want marketing in their business, but they really need to consider that for the exact example that we talked about on, regarding the car dealership, which is that more so than ever, customers are basically engaging the marketing functions of the company to begin their sales process. They're researching the websites, they're going to social media, they're looking up product specifications on Google. So they're doing all of these things before they ever engage a salesperson on it. So there really has to be close coordination between marketing and sales, and there has to be a lot of listening going on versus just rushing to say, let's do this, let's do this, let's do that. Sales enablement is all about helping manufacturers deliver crisp sales engagement from discovery to the sales presentations, to the delivery of the proposal. All of that is designed to support not how the manufacturer wants to sell, but rather how the manufacturing customers want to buy. And that's what marketing and sales both need to be focused on.
Okay. How about some key takeaways that you can leave with manufacturing leaders and their sales teams to help them, move the ball forward on this?
Okay, yeah, that's another good question. I think there's really just understanding that sales enablement provides a cohesive plan and operational scope, to conduct thoughtful opportunity qualification, to do more effective discovery. And discovery is basically questioning for the customer's needs, requirements, and success conditions. How to properly plan, position against competitors is extremely important. Managing objections in the sales process. Notice I didn't say handling objections. I've talked about managing objections. Those two are two fundamentally different things. And just in general, how to conduct sales meetings. The second thing is just what I reiterated, earlier. Sales and marketing both have to be involved, but they have the understanding that the needs of the sales professional are the thing that's most paramount. If leadership isn't listening to the challenges of the salespeople, then the resulting sales enablement effort will most likely fail. It just, I've seen it time and time and time again. Sales enablement is one of those deceptive things. It looks really easy in practice to put into place, but it's actually quite difficult. And just that kind of goes to my final point, which is even if marketing sales are involved, sales enablement is a thoughtful and deep-seated exercise. It's not something that can be slapped together, and actually it's often best served if it's outsourced to a subject matter expert with specific training and skill sets around the discipline. So those would probably be my 3 points.
Yeah, and to that last point, when you say you want to outsource this, I can understand why that would be a good idea, because that outside person can bridge that gap that probably an internal person wouldn't be able to, between the leadership and the sales and the marketing teams, and they could come in and sort of take all questions and sort of level out the playing field, maybe in a way that somebody internally couldn't do, right?
Yes. And I don't want to make, if you do set the right standards and goals and objectives and walk through that exercise and you're very disciplined about it, an organization can do that, on their own. It is the one nice thing about having an outside, person do it is that, our company do it is basically comes down to confirmation bias, right? It's, when you're so close to something, you basically see it through, through a rose-colored lens, sometimes, and basically having that outside perspective allows for an objective, very clear lens to be, looked at in all sorts of the organization. Plus, an outside organization isn't, nearly as subject to political, influences, that often go in, kind of the internal politics of companies. And, again, not all internal politics is bad politics, right? I mean, it's a necessary part of a business. But, having that outside objective look at the entire sales process and how sales enablement is managed basically, provides a fresh perspective on how to help sales professionals in the field especially if they're underperforming. And if they're already underperforming, then, the question is, it kind of amplifies maybe the need to have an outside perspective, looking in on it.
Mm-hmm. How long can that process take when you bring somebody in and get this process going? I'm assuming it's different depending on the size of your sales team and whatnot, but can you turn something around in 6 months?
I think 6 months is very fair. A lot of customers want things turned around in 1 month. And I think there's organizations that will cater to that. And, it just kind of goes to that tried and true adage is what you put into it, is what you're going to get out of it. So inputs, equal outputs. And, really the more the more thoughtful effort that you're putting into scoping, sales enablement, scoping the sales operations, making sure that it meets the objectives of the business. We talked about that earlier. That's, you're going to get a better end product.
Mm-hmm. And I suppose, we all know that changing people's habits do take time. You can't do it in 30 days probably. So yeah, give it a bit of time, but yeah.
Not magic workers, certainly. So
yeah. Yeah. Ryan, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
Okay. Well, Janet, thank you very much for having me. And thank you very much for asking, very, thoughtful, insightful questions. I love thoughtful, insightful questions. So it was terrific.
Well, thank you very much. Ryan Bresch is the VP Sales Enablement at Spoke Marketing. They're based in St. Louis. That's our show this week. You can find Make It Right on Twitter and LinkedIn, and you can subscribe to the podcast through iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, and YouTube. And remember, the Make It Right podcast is brought to you by Kevin Snook. He's a leadership advisor and author of the best-selling book, Make It Right: 5 Steps to Align Your Manufacturing Business from the Front Line to the Bottom Line. Until next time, I'm Janet Eastman. Have a great week. Thanks for listening to Make It Right.